Now, for example, if we say that even if the Speaker is asked to disqualify the 16 MLAs that Mr. Uddhav Thackeray wants to be disqualified, there is a very strange element in it. Their offence is that they have acted in a manner as if they have voluntarily given up their party membership. This is akin to what happened in 2017 to Mr. Sharad Yadav, who went and joined a Mahagathbandhan rally while Nitish Kumar had joined hands with the BJP. Mr. Venkaiah Naidu, the Rajya Sabha chairman, expelled him on grounds of having conducted himself in a way that he has left the party. Now, by the same yardstick, if you see what is the difference between the 16 against whom the petition has been moved or the 39 of the Shiv Senics who were camping in Guwahati, not much. Now, even if these 16 are expelled, Preeti, you do your calculations. If these 16 are expelled out of the total in the House 288, the strength comes down to 272. And then the halfway mark is 137. The BJP, Shiv Sena rebels and the independents and also the NCP members who are not unwell or are in jail, the number comes down to 139. Even if these people get disqualified, the BJP and the rebels have larger numbers. So this whole drama about the disqualification is actually an attempt to buy time to play on the nerves of the rebels who have sizable numbers now to unnerve Mr. Uddhav Thackeray. And that is why the court will have to look at the entire broad picture, not in isolation.
Stay with me, Rahul Srivastava. Let's quickly bring in Rajdeep Sardesai as well, our consulting editor who joins us from the newsroom with all that's going on, Rajdeep, right now. In the Supreme Court, it is the faction of Eknath Shinde's legal team which is arguing. On the other hand, the cabinet has just gotten over. Decisions have been made which the Shiv Sena wanted earlier on of renaming of cities, but no quitting. But what seems to suggest a farewell kind of a speech made by Uddhav Thackeray, where he thanked his cabinet, came out with folded hands, faced the media, all of that taking place. But everything now, all eyes where the Supreme Court is concerned.
Forget the Supreme Court. Uddhav Thackeray has decided to resign. We can tell you that he has told his cabinet colleagues that he will not face a floor test if the Supreme Court order goes against him. He has made it very clear to his cabinet colleagues that his speech to his cabinet colleagues, he told them, he thanked them first of all for their support, said he had attempted to do everything through very difficult times in COVID. He said he was saddened by the fact that he had been betrayed by his own, but very clearly indicated, according to a source close to Uddhav Thackeray, that if the situation remains that the Supreme Court says that the governor should go ahead with the floor test as of tomorrow morning, he has understood he doesn't have the numbers. He doesn't want to face the floor. He may give a speech either tonight or tomorrow morning ahead of that floor test, but he will not go in for the floor test. He will hand over his resignation. So Uddhav Thackeray has told his cabinet colleagues that if the Supreme Court matter which is going on at the moment goes against him, he will hand over his resignation either tonight or tomorrow morning.
That you're giving us, Rajdeep Sardesai is saying that Uddhav Thackeray has clearly conveyed to his cabinet that he's not going to face a floor test if the Supreme Court goes ahead and asks for the floor test to be conducted tomorrow at 11 a.m. Rajdeep Sardesai is telling us that Uddhav Thackeray will then step down. Either he will make a speech today or tomorrow morning, but he is not going to face a floor test if the Supreme Court gives the green light to the 11 a.m. floor test. But Rajdeep, the court in itself, the Supreme Court, if you're going through its observations right now as the arguments are being made, has gone ahead and said that this case is very different to any other case, particularly because the Supreme Court in itself has intervened and stayed the disqualification of those 16 MLAs. So there could be a possibility that more time is bought by the Shiv Sena. What in that case?
Well, look, it appears there's a very, very small possibility that Uddhav Thackeray will be thrown a lifeline by the Supreme Court, because the judgment in the Arunachal Pradesh case is very clear. The governor's discretion to order a floor test cannot be challenged. Yes, there is an unusual nature to this case, that a particular petition of disqualification is before the same court, and that matter is to be heard on the 11th of July. But as has been argued by Neeraj Kishan Kaul, the senior advocate appearing for the Sena rebels, these are two different matters, the disqualification matter and the question of a floor test. Abhishek Manu Singhvi has of course said this puts the cart before the horse, that first settle the disqualification petition, allow that to exhaust itself, and what is the hurry to have a floor test? The heavens will not fall. But there's a very small chance of that argument being accepted, given that in recent times, whether it's Karnataka, whether it's Madhya Pradesh, whether it's Arunachal Pradesh, in all these cases, the floor test has been seen as this place, the assembly floor, the place to decide whether a government has a majority. And clearly you can see from both Uddhav Thackre's body language and what I was told by cabinet colleagues of him who attended that meeting, that Uddhav Thackre has thrown in the towel. He has said that he intends to resign. There was one view that he should go to the floor of the House, make an emotional speech, but he's already made two emotional speeches. They've not had much of an impact on the Shiv Sena rebels. He will probably make one last Facebook Live, we are told, where he will speak to his supporters. The fact that Aurangabad today has been named Sambhaji Nagar, Osmanabad has been renamed. These were long pending issues before the Sena. So he's hoping to take the moral high ground and now resign and then face the next big battle, which is really a do or die battle for the Shiv Sena, which will come sometime in September, October, which is for the BMC elections. So he hopes that he can perhaps take the moral high ground, which he has clearly lost in a way in the last week, because he was planning to resign, we are told last week itself. He was held back by Sharad Pawar, who said, you must exhaust all your legal options. Those legal options are being exhausted tonight. And I think Uddhav Thackeray is now left with no choice. And his cabinet colleagues have confirmed that he has decided to resign and not face a floor test. So he's not going the route of a Yediyurappa or some of the other leaders who have at times faced floor tests. He's going more the Kamal Nath route, which is when Kamal Nath was faced with a similar situation in Madhya Pradesh 2 years ago, he chose to step down. So Uddhav Thackeray, we are told from our sources, will step down ahead of the floor test in Maharashtra.
You know, that's big breaking news, Rajdeep. Our consulting editor, Rajdeep Sardesai, elucidating for our viewers that Uddhav Thackeray has decided that he is going to throw in the towel. That is pending what the Supreme Court says. What we are given to understand, Rajdeep, as you said, that in all probability right now with what is going on in the Supreme Court, we'll only know in a few hours, because after the Eknath Shinde's legal team, there's going to be the chance of the Solicitor General. After that, we'll have an understanding. There could also be a possibility, Rajdeep, because the arguments are going on for so long and taking so much time that they might not even finish today, is what our legal correspondents are telling us. So all this action could actually move to tomorrow and interimly the floor test be postponed.
Well, look, if the matter is not finalized today, then till the Supreme Court hearing is complete, Uddhav Thackeray may not resign. So we have to wait to see. The rebels are also waiting. They'll get an extra night in Goa. Not a bad time to be in Goa in the rains. If the Supreme Court was to continue hearing this into tomorrow, but that's again a very remote possibility. The very fact that the Supreme Court has heard this expeditiously from 5 p.m. clearly suggests they would like to end this matter before tomorrow. Look, this is almost working to a script. Devendra Fadnavis meets the governor last night. Within 12 hours, the governor asked Uddhav Thackeray to prove his majority. The meeting between Devendra Fadnavis and the governor takes place on the very day he meets JP Nadda and Amit Shah in Delhi. The day before that, the Supreme Court rules that the disqualification petitions of the speaker to be held in abeyance till the 11th of July. It's all worked in a way, you could argue, to exactly the way the BJP Shiv Sena rebels have wanted it to play out. And this is really the final act, therefore, that we are seeing. I don't see any way out now for Uddhav Thackeray, barring a sudden judgment of the Supreme Court that says, no, we will not have a floor test right away. We will first hear the speaker's disqualification petitions. That's the only hope that he's been sort of banking on. Yes, his supporters were bravely talking about the fact that there are 20 Shiv Sena MLAs who are in touch with them, who want to remain with the Shiv Sena. But that's actually not true. All of them have struck their deals. We do not have the details of each specific deal, but this has been in the making for a long time. So I think Uddhav Thackeray and his supporters clearly misread the situation, misread the mood of the MLAs and of Eknath Shinde, once a very close associate of Uddhav Thackeray. Eknath Shinde has, in a way, struck his deals with Devendra Fadnavis. And what we are told, it will be Mr. Fadnavis who will probably take over on Friday as Chief Minister, with Eknath Shinde as Deputy Chief Minister, and at least 7 rebels being given key portfolios in this new government.
Well, that's big breaking news, Rajdeep. Appreciate you joining us. Rajdeep Sardesai would be joining us in the studio in a very short while from now. But Rahul Srivastava and all our other band of reporters who've been breathlessly reporting on the developments that are taking place right now. I want to cut across to Anand Dubey, spokesperson Shiv Sena. Dubey साहब, बड़ी खबर जो हम ब्रेक कर रहे हैं अभी कि उद्धव ठाकरे जी ने अगर सुप्रीम कोर्ट कहती है कि फ्लोर टेस्ट कल होगा, उन्होंने हथियार डाल दिए हैं. उन्होंने बोल दिया है कि मैं रिजाइन करूंगा पर फ्लोर टेस्ट नहीं फेस करूंगा.
प्रीति जी, ऐसा है कि देखिए, कैबिनेट की मीटिंग खत्म हुई और आपके माध्यम से भी मुझे मालूम पड़ रहा है कि उन्होंने ऐसा कहा है. इसके विषय में मुझे जानकारी नहीं है. मैं लेकिन एक बात विशेष रूप से आपको कहना चाहता हूं कि आज 9वां दिन है. 8 दिन से बीजेपी कह रही है कि ये शिवसेना का अंदरूनी मामला है, हमें इससे कोई लेना देना नहीं. न तो हम उनकी सरकार गिराना चाहते हैं, न तो हम शिवसेना को कमजोर करना चाहते हैं. लेकिन हैरानी की बात यहाँ से शुरू होती है कि कल रात को 10 बजे देवेंद्र जी के नेतृत्व में महामहिम जी से एक मुलाकात होती है. उनको एक लेटर दिया जाता है कि सरकार अल्पमत में है. 12 घंटे के भीतर महामहिम जी एक नोटिस इशू करते हैं कि आपकी सरकार अल्पमत में है और 30 जून को आप फ्लोर टेस्ट करिए. जी देखिए कि अगर आज कर देते तो क्या होता. उनकी बड़ी कृपा रही कि आज 29 जून को उन्होंने फ्लोर टेस्ट नहीं करवाया. मैं हैरान इस बात को भी लेकर हूं कि महामहिम जी ने जिस मुख्यमंत्री और जिस मुख्यमंत्री के मंत्रिमंडल को शपथ दिलाई, क्या एक बार उनसे सलाह नहीं ले सकते? उनसे नहीं पूछ सकते कि आपकी सरकार क्या अल्पमत में है? मैं बीमार था, मैं अस्पताल में था, मुझे कोई जानकारी नहीं है, पहले आप बताइए. पहला हक आपका है, फिर मैं विपक्ष से पूछूंगा. लेकिन बिल्कुल नहीं, आनंद फानंद में उन्होंने 30 तारीख का समय दे दिया. देखिए, कोर्ट में जाना, सुप्रीम कोर्ट में जाना है हमारा मौलिक अधिकार है प्रीति जी. हम कोर्ट में जा सकते हैं. कोर्ट जो भी फैसला करेगा हमारे सर आंखों पर हमें मान्य है. अगर कोर्ट कह देगा कि कल ही फ्लोर टेस्ट करना है तो कोई ऑप्शन नहीं है, कल फ्लोर टेस्ट में जाएंगे. सरकार बने बिगड़े अलग बात है. लेकिन जिस प्रकार इस पूरे खेल को बीजेपी खेल रही है, ये लोकतंत्र की हत्या के समान है. और ये
आनंद दुबे जी, आप हमारे साथ बने रहिए. आई एम गोइंग टू क्विकली डिप इनटू द लेटेस्ट न्यूज ब्रेक एंड इट्स बिग news break on India Today, viewers. Rajdeep Sardesai, consulting new editor, has just spoken to somebody who was in the cabinet meeting, and the word coming in from there is big. What you just possibly saw could have been the last cabinet taking place of Uddhav Thackeray. Uddhav Thackeray coming out with folded hands in front of the media. Body language wise, it pretty much seems to suggest that Uddhav Thackeray is possibly on his way out. What we are given to understand as a cabinet minister has confirmed to our consulting editor Rajdeep Sardesai that Uddhav Thackeray in this cabinet meeting has pretty much made it clear that he will step down, that he will resign and not face a floor test or the embarrassment of a floor test, because the writing is on the wall. He is in the minority. The majority of his own MLAs out of 55, 39 right now with Eknath Shinde. He's not going to face the embarrassment of that. He's going to step down. But if there is an outside chance that the Supreme Court does intervene and the proceedings of a floor test are postponed, then Uddhav Thackeray will not resign because more time would be bought then. However, right now, with what we are getting to understand, the indication is very, very clear, viewers, and the indication is Uddhav Thackeray has decided to resign if a floor test is going to take place tomorrow at 11 a.m. Right now, it will be the Supreme Court that will decide whether or not the floor test there will be a go-ahead or not given by the Supreme Court. Arguments are still on that front. I want to cut across to Rahul Srivastava, National Affairs Editor. Rahul, big news break coming in on that account. Uddhav Thackeray doesn't want to face the embarrassment of a floor test. We've seen that happen today. You know, few can forget the grandstanding of Yediyurappa, where he delivered that emotional speech where he started crying on the floor, of the State Assembly before the floor test. He's going to do none of that. There possibly could be another Facebook address, but Uddhav Thackeray at least has, decided, and that's what we've been given to understand, that if the Supreme Court allows a floor test tomorrow, and in all probability it just might do so at 11 a.m., Uddhav Thackeray is throwing in the towel before it.
Preeti, I think this whole idea of avoiding a floor test is problematic. It's replete with political lack of strategy. The one point which I disagreed with Rajdeep is that yes, it's a written script by the BJP and others, but it has largely happened because there was a lack of control within the Shiv Sena as far as Uddhav Thackeray is concerned, and the BJP feasted on that. Now, if we look at the scenario, number scenario, there is no way the disqualification is going to help of MLAs, 16 of them, is going to help Uddhav Thackeray. The number game is well and truly over for him. Now, he knows that, and that is why he does not want to go till the end of facing a floor test, losing a government, and eventually taking a hardline position against the breakaway faction of the Sena and the BJP. Remember, there is, if you look at the picture, that in case he actually does it, the government, goes to the floor of the house, loses the government. In that scenario, can he stay in future with the Maharashtra Vikas Aghadi, NCP and Congress? Very difficult, because Eknath Shinde has taken the Hindutva pitch to a new high, and Shiv Sena cannot stay with the MBA, Congress and the NCP even after losing the government. And that is why there are very few options left for Mr. Uddhav Thackeray. Once in case he loses the government, Eknath Shinde and the BJP are in power, he may even start losing his party. And that is why a graceful exit could well have an emotional pull. Also, eventually accepting what Eknath Shinde's pitch has been in terms of a political realignment could well be the last option for Mr. Uddhav Thackeray. And that is why I have been maintaining this from the first day. This is a political battle, not really a numerical battle. The pitch of Hindutva actually was an unnerving one. It was the undoing of the Uddhav Thackeray government, because the contradiction of the players within the MVA, not only because he was not meeting MLAs and MLAs were unhappy that the ED was chasing him and he was not listening to them. Those are just alibis. I think the pitch of Hindutva, the BJP constructed with Eknath Shinde, was the compelling factor.
You know, Rahul, stay on with me. I want to quickly encapsulate with what has gone down in the last 20 minutes, viewers. This is big news break that we've gotten. Exclusively to India Today, our consulting editor Rajdeep Sardesai has just spoken to a cabinet member who was there at the cabinet meeting, and it seems Uddhav Thackeray has pretty much laid it bare, where he's told his cabinet that he's not going to face a floor test or the embarrassment of a floor test herein. He doesn't have the numbers, and if the Supreme Court orders that a floor test take place tomorrow, because those arguments are still taking place as we speak in Delhi in the apex court, then Uddhav Thackeray will go ahead and step down and resign. He might have a Facebook address before this, but we are not seeing Uddhav Thackeray go the whole hog like we saw possibly in Karnataka, where Mr. Yediyurappa before the floor test gave an emotional speech where he started even crying and then stepped down. More like possibly with what Kamal Nath did when he lost majority in the state of Madhya Pradesh. He will step down, is what is being confirmed on our channel. First, to break that news on India Today, viewers, I want to now cut across back and bring in Rahul Srivastav into this conversation again. You know, Rahul, what's interesting in all of this is how, as per script, because it seems to be, you know, if we can call it a political thriller, the way things have, progressed, a tightly woven, plot where nothing has gone away from script, where at least the Eknath Shinde faction or the BJP is concerned. The BJP really stepped into the final chapter of this plot.
Yeah, I see. Eventually it couldn't have happened without a support or I think the hand-holding of an outfit like the BJP. See, Preeti, if you see the moment the Maharashtra Vikas Aghadi government was formed, the BJP knew that a cohesive MVA in the next election would have spelled trouble both in the Lok Sabha and the Assembly for the BJP. It would have been very difficult if this government had established itself, and that is why BJP first made a numerical attempt to form the government, which seemed greedy, power hungry and others. But then it has worked over the last few months, in which it has created a ground on which some Shiv Sena MLAs could break away, eventually hijack the whole party, reduce Mr. Uddhav Thackeray to a minority in his own party on an ideological plank. And I think that's what the BJP's eventual end game was. Because if they had stayed together, it would have been a problem. So what the BJP has actually done, that in the power hustings as far as Maharashtra is concerned, it has become the top player yet again. That if you look at the numbers, if last time around it was 106 odd, this time again, the BJP will remain the main player. And that's exactly what the BJP wanted. Now, what sources are saying now, that eventually the BJP is not ready to hand over power to Mr. Eknath Shinde, because there will be several issues involved in that. And that is why Mr. Fadnavis is likely to come back as the chief minister once this government goes. And it's just a matter of time. Even if what sources are saying, BJP sources are telling me that even if this drags on for another 2 weeks, the MLAs are not going to crack, because Uddhav Thackeray has not shown any great resolve in actually mending fences, one, and second, not displayed that quality of leadership that they feel enthused to go back to him. What some Shiv Sena MLA breakaway factionists are saying is that he is playing in the hands of a Sharad Pawar and the Congress, which is exactly what they are rebelling against. And some leaders are even saying that he would have resigned much earlier if it was not somebody like Sharad Pawar who was telling him, don't precipitate a crisis till it really arrives at your door, and don't try to ensure as long as possible to avoid a midterm election. And that's what perhaps is the issue, that these MLAs are now very firm. They sense an opportunity to create their own political space. And that is why in the coming days, the BJP remains the key, that if it actually wants to form the government with Mr. Eknath Shinde and his MLA support, the BJP will ensure that even time does not offer Mr. Uddhav Thackeray an opportunity to win back the MLAs.
Well, it might have happened too little, too late, but in all of this, viewers, if it is, if we are going to go as to what we are picking up right now in terms of what happened in the cabinet meeting, where Uddhav Thackeray, in no uncertain words, has told his cabinet, and this is news that you're only getting in India today, that he will step down before he faces a floor test, viewers. This is big news break coming in. He says he's not going to face a floor test, but he will step down before the floor test, that is, if the Supreme Court, because those arguments are still going on as we speak right now in the Supreme Court. As we speak, the Eknath Shinde's legal team is arguing on why the floor test needs to go ahead tomorrow at 11 a.m. And if the Supreme Court concurs with the Eknath Shinde faction, then viewers, Uddhav Thackeray will step down. These images are coming in of Uddhav Thackeray's cavalcade. He's already moved out of the Chief Minister's residence, Varsha. He is the cavalcade there of Uddhav Thackeray pulling into Matoshri, his own personal residence. And he did, in fact, tell his cabinet that, and I will bring in Kamlesh Suta right now. Kamlesh, big news that is coming in right now is that it seems Uddhav Thackeray has conceded defeat if the floor test is to happen tomorrow at 11 a.m. He's not facing the embarrassment of the floor test, like in the case of what happened in Madhya Pradesh with Kamal Nath. He's going to resign before he has to step into the floors of the State Assembly.
Well, what we are learning, Preeti, from sources is that Uddhav Thackeray has made up his mind, but he will not lose that last opportunity to address the House. Remember, the governor, while ordering of the trust vote, had said that this should be telecasted and broadcasted live on television through the television screens of Vidhan Bhavan. So that is one point which Uddhav would like to score on. Before facing the trust vote, Uddhav Thackeray will be addressing the members of the Legislative Assembly, and there, just as we saw in the case of B.S. Yedurappa and in the earlier case also with Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee, when he had resigned, he made an emotional speech, an outgoing emotional speech. Uddhav Thackeray might also like to follow that suit and would like to address the people of Maharashtra at large through this opportunity, and before facing the trust vote, he might just concede that. But all eyes will be on Supreme Court, on what verdict comes out of the Supreme Court. In fact, just a while before, Shiv Sena leader Sanjay Raut and Uddhav's close aide, he also said that in case the the Supreme Court comes up with a verdict, if it's good verdict in our favor, then perhaps we would win the trust vote tomorrow. But Uddhav Thackeray seems to have made up his mind. We've seen his emotional speech, almost a farewell speech, while he addressed the cabinet, his cabinet colleagues, thanking them all for their cooperation and also admitting to the fact that whatever has happened is only because of the betrayal of his colleagues. But Uddhav Thackeray tomorrow might just not face the trust vote in case the Supreme Court verdict goes against him.
You know, Kamlesh, in all of this, it is now interesting because now you look at it from the perspective of him stepping down before he faces the floor test. The fact that the last decision of the cabinet was concede to the age-old demand of the Shiv Sena is to rename, 2 cities and 1 airport.
Well, yes, the Sambhajinagar issue, in fact, what an irony it has been. The Congress and NCP and Shiv Sena have been in a tussle over renaming the city of Aurangabad, but today sitting together in power and Uddhav's own men going against him on the lines of Hindutva, Uddhav Thackeray had to take that decision, and the Congress NCP who have been opposing to that move for years altogether had no option than to concede to Uddhav Thackeray's demand here, and they had to be only mute spectators when the decision was taken, and they had to concede to Uddhav Thackeray's demand of renaming Aurangabad as Sambhajinagar and Osmanabad as Dharashiv. Also, one airport, the Navi Mumbai airport that is coming out on the outskirts of Mumbai, will be named as Diba Patil International Airport, a strong farmers leader from the area. Uddhav Thackeray, initially they would also demand from a quarter of Shiv Sena to name the airport after Shiv Sena Supremo Balasaheb Thackeray. In fact, a large chunk of Shiv Senics were adamant on the demand, but today Uddhav Thackeray also considered that demand and said that it will be named after Diba Patil, and a cabinet decision in that regard was taken. So Uddhav is trying to take a couple of steps back just to convince the rebel MLAs, perhaps a last-ditch effort by Uddhav Thackeray, just to show that I am on the lines of Hindutva. I have not deviated myself or the party's ideology from that of Balasaheb Thackeray and that of Hindutva. Sambhajinagar's issue perhaps maybe appealing to the rebel MLAs from Sambhajinagar. A large chunk from Aurangabad have joined Eknath Shinde. They have also been raising questions about Uddhav Thackeray deviating from his father's and Shiv Sena's original ideology of Hindutva. So in all, Uddhav Thackeray just trying to hang on to that last ray of hope that he has. Perhaps if the Supreme Court verdict comes in his favor, he might just make an appeal to his party's rebel MLAs that, see, I have taken this decision, this is what your demand was. Now since I have considered to your demands, will you consider coming back? But that seems to be a remote possibility. Time has run out for Uddhav Thackeray. It's perhaps a little too late. But tomorrow, in case, as sources are pointing out, that in case Uddhav Thackeray, the Supreme Court verdict, if it comes not in the favor of Uddhav Thackeray, he might just concede his defeat just before the trust vote. He might be present there tomorrow, might be, but he may not face the trust vote, might give an emotional speech, appeal to his party workers, and then might just walk out of the house before facing the trust
stay with
vote.
me, Kamlesh, because we're going to come down to the next question. So if the Supreme Court goes ahead and gives the green light to the floor test tomorrow at 11 a.m., Uddhav Thackeray will go to the State Assembly and maybe step down before the floor test begins. That's what Kamlesh Sutar is breaking right now on India Today. But I want to pull in my colleague Vidya, who is now joining us outside Matushri, because viewers, what you just saw, and these are visuals coming in. If body language is to say, then Uddhav Thackeray clearly seems to at least, be coherent with the fact that his time is up. He's coming out thanking the media with folded hands. Inside, there's more news coming in. He spoke for about 3 to 4 minutes, thanked all ministers, bureaucrats for the help of 2.5 years. Pretty much a speech, a farewell kind of a speech that Uddhav Thackeray made, said, keep up this support. His body language seems to be a bit emotional. We've seen him highly emotional. These other 2 speeches that he had made through Facebook. Number one, on day 1 of the rebels leaving him, was made for the rebels, emotional at that. And the second speech made to his loyalists, and today, of course, the speech which was made to his cabinet. I want to cut across to Vidya, who's joining us right outside Matushri. Vidya, especially the cadre of Shiv Sena is known to be highly emotional. Usually when we've seen Uddhav Thackeray come back to Matushri after meetings where a lot of speculation has taken place, we see a lot of Shiv Senics right outside Matushri in support, in solidarity. What's the situation today with that?
Today there was hardly anyone actually when the cavalcade actually entered. But certainly, the emotions exist. The moment he was entering, there were a few Shiv Senics who were standing around, and they were extremely, emotional at the fact that this was probably the last time that the cavalcade of sorts, the entire cavalcade with the police escort, with the number of vehicles that were there, that would probably driving in for the last time after, when tomorrow is the only time when he will probably going. But certainly even at this juncture, some of the Shiv Senics extremely upset with what the MLAs have done. In fact, we spoke to some of the Shiv Senics who had just come some time back, and they were very sure that if Uddhav Thackeray actually gave them one go-ahead, they have prepared like garlands of chappals, and they're ready to beat up the MLAs. That sort of, mindset is already there. They just need one go-ahead from Uddhav Thackeray is what they have been saying. So the Shiv Senics extremely unhappy with what the MLAs have done, but it is Uddhav Thackeray who finds himself in the most difficult times right now. Remember, in the party, the party has seen rebellion earlier, but to almost bring it to a place where there are hardly any MLAs, there's just Uddhav Thackeray himself and a couple of more people that remains in the party in the top rank, while the Shiv Senics, some of the Shiv Senics, though now not speaking vehemently, but many say that the Hindutva issue that has been raised by Eknath Shinde was the core issue of Shiv Sena, and that's the party should have stuck to it. But obviously most of them still saying that whatever Uddhav Thackeray says, we'll be with that. So the party is a divided house right now. It will be remaining for Uddhav Thackeray to build up the entire party, Aditya Thackeray to build up the entire party all over again, resurrect it, so that in the next coming elections, remember there are many elections that are lined up right now. There are municipal elections, there are small elections across the state. Before the big elections that will be 2.5 years away. So at this juncture, the party is preparing not just for the upcoming elections, but the forthcoming many elections that will have to probably fight on its own. And that's the reason some of the supporters who have been visiting here have been very clear when they come out after meeting Uddhav Thackeray in the last couple of days. They say that the party is preparing itself for the forthcoming elections. These elections, tomorrow's the vote of confidence, that really does not matter to the party as such.
Stay with me. Let's quickly get our viewers up to speed with what's taking place right now in Supreme Court. Viewers, believe me, like what we began the show with, there are 3 locations where developments are taking place. Number 1, of course, is Maharashtra, Mumbai, where we are given to understand that Uddhav Thackeray has indicated that he's not going to face a floor test. He will step down before that floor test is convened on the floor of the House. Number 2 is what's going on right now, viewers. In Supreme Court, the Shinde's defense team, the lawyer of Eknath Shinde, has concluded his arguments. Mr. Kaul has said to prevent unseemingly political bargaining, the floor test must be conducted tomorrow. The Supreme Court hearing has been on for 2.5 hours. Up next is going to be the Solicitor General. In all probability, will there be a floor test tomorrow? Well, there is an outside chance, very little, that it's ruled otherwise. So we are staring at a floor test. But what we are given to understand is that the Supreme Court, as Eknath Shinde's defense concluded its arguments, the Supreme Court asked how many MLAs are in the dissident group. Now, the lawyer of Eknath Shinde says, my instructions are 39 out of 55. That's why this great nervousness over the floor test. The Supreme Court asks, and how many face disqualification? The lawyer says 16. The Supreme Court asks, why only 16? Why not 39? And then the judges discuss. It's interesting, viewers, because the main ploy in all of this, and I'll bring in Kamlesh Sutar back into this conversation. Kamlesh, what we were discussing on television right now being asked by the Supreme Court. All right, viewers, let's listen in to more reactions coming in. A cabinet minister speaking to India Today, then we'll cut across to Kamlesh.
आज महत्वपूर्ण कैबिनेट की बैठक थी। आखिर मुख्यमंत्री उद्धव ठाकरे ने क्या कहा, ये सब लोग यही जानना चाहते हैं। मंत्री राजेंद्र शिंदे जी इस वक्त हमारे साथ मौजूद हैं। उद्धव ठाकरे जी जब नीचे आए थे तमाम मीडिया कर्मियों के सामने उन्होंने हाथ जोड़े, काफी इमोशनल नजर आ रहे थे। आखिर ऊपर क्या कहा ये बताइए।
आज कैबिनेट की मीटिंग हमारी थी अच्छे वातावरण में और अच्छे माहौल में। कोई भी तनाव मीटिंग पर नहीं था। माननीय उद्धव जी ठाकरे जो हमारे मुख्यमंत्री है उन पर भी कोई तनाव नहीं था और अच्छी तरह से मीटिंग हुई। 8 या 10 सब्जेक्ट मीटिंग में थे। यूनानिमसली सभी प्रस्ताव मंजूर हुए और मीटिंग होने के बाद में माननीय मुख्यमंत्री ने 2-3 मिनट सबसे थोड़ा सा उन्होंने उद्बोधन किया और अपने थोड़े से उद्बोधन में उन्होंने पिछले 2.5 साल में जो महाविकास आघाड़ी का ये सरकार महाराष्ट्र में काम कर रहा है और उनको मुख्यमंत्री बनाया और उनको जो सहयोग दिया उसके लिए उन्होंने सभी का आभार माना। खास करके हम जो मंत्रिमंडल में उनके सहकारी मंत्री, राज्य मंत्री, अधिकारी, सचिव, इनका भी उन्होंने आभार माना और आगे चल के भी हम साथ में काम करते रहेंगे। आने वाले इलेक्शन में हम साथ रहेंगे, ऐसा भी उन्होंने कहा।
उद्धव ठाकरे जी की बॉडी लैंग्वेज कैसे दिख रही थी, क्योंकि कैसे समय में जब महाराष्ट्र राजनीति में इस वक्त घमासान मचा हुआ है, जब वो कैबिनेट में शामिल हुए उनकी बॉडी लैंग्वेज कैसी थी?
वो बिल्कुल शांत थे, उनपे चेहरे पर कोई भी तनाव नहीं था और अच्छे वातावरण में हमारी मीटिंग हो गई।
क्या ये भी कहा कि अगर फ्लोर टेस्ट हो जाता है तब उनका अगला स्टेप क्या होगा?
फ्लोर टेस्ट का विषय ही नहीं निकला।
अच्छा,
हाँ, फ्लोर टेस्ट के बाद भी नहीं हुई, विषय भी नहीं निकला और कोई इसलिए कोई इस्तीफे का भी कोई विषय वहाँ निकला नहीं।
अच्छा, चलिए, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया सर। कैमरा पर्सन महेश मौर्य के साथ पंकज उपाध्याय, मुंबई।
All right, viewers, lots of reactions coming in from that cabinet meeting, but let's quickly cut across and get you the latest that is coming in from the concluding arguments of Eknath Shinde's lawyer in court. What is being said, viewers, is interesting because when asked on how many MLAs did Eknath Shinde have, the lawyer said 39. And what is important once again, because this is the second time that the lawyer has underlined the fact that today we are not leaving the Shiv Sena, we are the Shiv Sena. There is a hopeless minority of 14 which is trying to hold on to power. Interesting developments as they take place. We're going to cut across to Kamlesh Sutar as well as our court reporters, but I want to quickly pull in Vidya into all of this as well. You know, Vidya, what's really interesting right now is even with what's going down in court on how it's going to filter down if Uddhav Thackeray steps down. Because ultimately, what Eknath Shinde is clearly posturing, and really not wrong, because he says that it is the Eknath Shinde faction that is the real Shiv Sena. They have 39 out of the 59 MLAs that belong to the Shiv Sena in court. The lawyers are saying we are the real Shiv Sena. There is a hopeless minority of 14 which is trying to hold on to power.
In fact, it was exactly fearing this that Uddhav Thackeray led Shiv Sena had passed a resolution. If you remember, a couple of days ago, there was an executive working, the Shiv Sena's meeting in Shiv Sena Bhavan, and there they passed one of the resolution was that no one can really take over the party, and that if they really wanted to use a Thackeray name, then they had to be remaining in this party, or else if they really wanted to move out, they had to use their own father's name instead of Uddhav Thackeray's father's name. So these kind of events have really happened, but it will be interesting, after this floor test, whatever happens in the floor test, there will be a long drawn battle that Uddhav Thackeray will be seeing, not just for resurrecting his party, but also fighting these MLAs to, whether they actually want to go ahead with taking the symbol of the party, the name of the party. All these things will actually go up to the election commission, where things will have to be decided. It's not just the fact that tomorrow, if the floor test is held and if Uddhav Thackeray has to resign, that will be the end of the entire issue for Uddhav Thackeray. The Shiv Sena will really have to fight very hard to maintain its identity, to maintain the people that it has until now, to get those people back. It is still trying its best, but at this moment, yes, the fight certainly is not over for Uddhav Thackeray.
Well, the fight is not over where the party is concerned, and the biggest test for Uddhav Thackeray will now, viewers, come with the BMC elections, which are just around the corner. And, Vidya, even if he does step down, the big fight lies ahead with the BMC elections.
Yes, in fact, we have been seeing since the MLAs left the party, in fact, Uddhav Thackeray has been meeting not just, and it's not just the BMC elections, there are municipal elections across Maharashtra. And that's the reason why from, Navi Mumbai to Thane, even Eknath Shinde's own area, he has been meeting party rank holders, people who have been working as Shakha Pramukhs, Vibhag Pramukhs, lower rang Shakha members. He has been speaking to each and every member right now. Unlike what, the Eknath Shinde, remember at one point, Eknath Shinde camp had leveled the allegation that Uddhav Thackeray as CM was inaccessible to them. That's the opposite of what exactly Thackeray is doing right now. He's meeting each and every party member to make sure that the BMC elections and the other elections which are coming up will be a
Stay with me, Vidya. We're
sailing
getting
that
in, would you stay with me? Coming right back to you. I want to cut across to my colleague Nalini, who's joining us right now from Supreme Court, where this marathon-long hearing continues. It's 2.5 hours. And the latest that is coming in is that Eknath Shinde's defense lawyer, Mr. Kaul, has just concluded his arguments, and he's concluded, Nalini, with the fact where he says today, we are not leaving the Shiv Sena, we are the Shiv Sena. There is a hopeless minority of 14 which is trying to hold on to power.
Well, absolutely, Preeti, because this has been the stand that the Eknath Shinde camp has been taking from the beginning, that because they have the majority of MLAs on their side, they are the ones who are forming the real Shiv Sena, and it is in fact the Uddhav Thackeray-led camp that is currently in minority, despite the fact that Uddhav Thackeray is the sitting chief minister. But along with that, what we also have is senior advocate Maninder Singh, who is also a former additional solicitor general, who is also arguing on behalf of Eknath Shinde himself before the Supreme Court. And what he said is that so far in every case that's come up before the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court's had to open up late like this, it's usually been to order an immediate floor test when it's not been happening. This is the first time we're seeing a case where the Supreme Court has to decide on whether or not a floor test should be stayed. So that's a very interesting legal perspective that Maninder Singh has just put across. But we can expect, Preeti, for the hearing to go on for a little while longer, because remember, there is another petition that is pending on behalf of two people, especially seeking permission to come out of jail and go ahead and be a part of this floor test in case it is scheduled for tomorrow. So that petition will only be heard once the hearing in this entire matter is complete. The main thing we are watching and waiting out for right now are the arguments that will be put forth by the Solicitor General. Because he will be arguing on behalf of the Governor of Maharashtra, and he will be defending the order that was issued by him that directed a floor test to happen as early as tomorrow, despite all the objections that have been put in place by Dr. Singh.
Nalini, tell us one thing. Could there be a possibility, because the arguments, like you said, are going on, it's long and protracted, it's already been 2.5 hours. We are still hearing Eknath Shinde's defense make their arguments. After that is the Solicitor General representing the Governor. Will the arguments wrap up today, or is there a possibility that the Supreme Court, continues to hear the argument tomorrow, which will pretty much mean that the floor test is stayed till the Supreme Court hears out these arguments?
Well, Preeti, there was a very interesting observation or statement rather that was made by Justice Surya Kant roughly about 1 hour after we were already into the hearing, where he said that time is of no constraint and what they want is to ensure that all the issues that are involved in this case are properly looked at. Now, by virtue of the fact that the Eknath Shinde camp, when they had brought the two petitions to the Supreme Court, they had put forth a flurry of issues before the Supreme Court, including the motion for the removal of the Speaker, the disqualification proceedings, the appointment of the chief whip that was done of the Maharashtra Assembly, along with the fact that the point regarding the floor test itself was raised. And now, because all of these issues have become interrelated, the Supreme Court can't pick and choose that it will decide on one and not decide on the other, because all of them will impact each other's proceedings. So keeping that in mind, the Supreme Court's categorically laid down that there is no constraint for time. So we could see this hearing going on till late into the night, not of course as late as we saw the Karnataka hearing going on, but despite the fact that it started at 5 p.m. in the evening, we can expect it to go on for a while before we see an order coming in from the Supreme Court. But an order we will definitely see, Preeti, and the reason for that is because the Governor has issued specific directions saying that the floor test will be called upon for tomorrow. So if the Supreme Court does not issue specific orders putting a stay on that floor test, then that order of the governor stays very much in place. It will be applicable, it will be enforced, and the floor test will happen tomorrow. That is precisely the reason why the Uddhav camp is making this last-ditch effort before the Supreme Court to try and get favourable orders in their favour, because they know that this is the only resort that they have left at least as far as legal remedies are concerned, to get things back onto their side and have some sort of leverage through the way of buying a little bit more time so that the floor test doesn't happen tomorrow. Dr. Singhvi's clearly stated that the heavens will not fall if the floor test doesn't happen tomorrow. But both Maninder Singh as well as Neeraj Kishan Kaul time and again have clarified before the Supreme Court that the Supreme Court first of all cannot enter into this entire matter at this stage, and second, that the Supreme Court in the past precedents has said that disqualification proceedings against MLAs or MPs will have no impact if a floor test is conducted. Plus, the floor test is an essential part to ensure that the democratic process is allowed to carry on. So keeping all these things in mind, will the Supreme Court actually pass an unprecedented order and issue a stay on the floor test? Because Preeti, that's what it'll be. It'll be an unprecedented order if a stay is issued on the floor test for tomorrow, because that has never been done by the Supreme Court before. The Supreme Court has always been in the favour of holding a floor test as early as possible, which is why with certainty we can say that even if an order is issued staying the floor test tomorrow, there won't be too much time that will be granted to the Uddhav camp. The floor test will happen in the next coming few days, but what remains to be seen is whether it will happen tomorrow or not.
All right, a floor test is in order. Appreciate you joining us, Nalini. We're going to continue to come back to you. What we've heard till now, as Nalini also said, we've heard Dr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi, who argued for the Mahavikas Aghadi, Uddhav Thackeray in particular, the Chief Minister of Maharashtra. You also now are hearing one part of the argument has concluded where the Eknath Shinde camp is concerned. Now you're hearing Mr. Singh, who's arguing for Eknath Shinde. After this, viewers, you will hear the Solicitor General who argues for the governor. In all probability, we will see a floor test happen tomorrow. It would be unprecedented if it doesn't, because usually the Supreme Court has always ordered in favor of floor test. But this time around, the Supreme Court, both the judges self-admittedly had said and admitted that this case is highly peculiar and different than other cases. So is there an outside chance that the floor test will be averted tomorrow? And if it is averted, how long will that be postponed till? We'll keep a keen eye on all developments. Right now, at least where the Supreme Court is concerned, we are going to see arguments go down later on during the course of the evening, the night there. But we will hear an order by the Supreme Court today itself. All eyes there. I want to quickly bring in Kamlesh Sutar, my colleague, who's joining us with the very latest developments as they take place in the state of Maharashtra. Kamlesh, what we are given to understand is that Uddhav Thackeray has pretty much conveyed that he's not going to face a floor test. Whether he puts in his resignation before the floor test, addresses his party through Facebook, or go to the State Assembly and before the floor test is concerned, takes place, addresses and steps down. That remains to be seen. But one thing is clear, that he has decided that he will not go through with the floor test because he doesn't quite have the numbers with him. What next, Kamlesh? Because coming up are the BMC elections. The next fight for Uddhav Thackeray is going to save his own party, because what is being now said in court, it's not been said once, it's been said at least thrice over, what is being echoed by Eknath Shinde as well, is that the Eknath Shinde faction is the real Shiv Sena.
Well, yes, indeed, that's the big question for Uddhav Thackeray and Aditya Thackeray, because their political future now hangs in balance. If at all Eknath Shinde camps goes ahead and doesn't just stop at the legislative party. See, Preeti, this problem, the issue that the Shiv Sena is facing is about the legislative party. Legislative party is just part of the entire party setup. The party is made up of its national executive body. Then there's parliamentary body. There are several district chief. There are other posts in the party. They take the unanimous decision on behalf of the party. For Uddhav Thackeray, he knows for sure that the legislative party is no more with him. If the majority of chunk has gone with the rebels, then it remains just a question or a matter of formality in case he wants to face the trust vote. And then he knows that he doesn't enjoy the support of MLAs that is required. So in the number game of the legislative party, Uddhav Thackeray perhaps sees the writing is on the wall. But as far as the larger party is concerned, Shiv Sena is not just restricted to the legislative assembly. It is more beyond that. So the district chiefs, the other office bearers of the party, Uddhav wants to have that control over the party. And as you rightly mentioned, the most crucial BMC elections are approaching very near. They could take place in another 2-3 months' time. For Shiv Sena, the BMC has been its soul, the party and its cadre. There has been an ecosystem of the Shiv Sena and the BMC. The Shiv Sena has perhaps born, thrived and grown just around that ecosystem of the Mumbai Municipal Corporation. So Uddhav would like to keep his party cadre intact, and that is what we've seen. Look at the developments in last few days. Ever since this rebellion took place, Uddhav Thackeray has been holding meeting with all the corporators, office bearers of his party, district chief and other office bearers. On the other hand, Aditya Thackeray is on a spree of addressing rallies in different parts of Mumbai. In fact, even today, late evening, what we are hearing that he was supposed to address a rally. Whether he goes there and addresses the party cadre also remains to be seen. Sanjay Raut is addressing several rallies. He is trying to put up a brave face and trying to address in his own aggressive Shiv Sena style. They don't want to lose the control over the party, because if that is gone, the Thackeray brand is gone, and that is what Uddhav Thackeray is very clear of, and that is what he would not like to happen.
Right, and that is something he'd said very much in his first emotional address, that, where he used that the Thackeray is Shiv Sena and Shiv Sena is a part of the Thackeray family. I want to cut across to Rahul Srivastav before we end the broadcast there. A news just coming in from the Supreme Court. The Solicitor General is now speaking, is arguing for Maharashtra Governor. That would mean that Eknath Shinde's defense, his arguments are over. The Eknath Shinde camp's arguments are over in Supreme Court. It's the chance right now of the Solicitor General. We might hear in an hour, viewers, on what the Supreme Court has actually decided on whether the floor test will be conducted at 11 a.m. tomorrow. But Rahul Srivastav, I'll quickly get you in for a quick word. It's interesting how developments are taking place right now. Let's assume that, if not tomorrow, there will be a floor test. Word coming in, Uddhav Thackeray will step down before the floor test. The big challenge is to keep his party together, to keep his cadre with him and what he calls the Shiv Sena.
See, Preeti, first part. If the Supreme Court, if the Uddhav Thackeray side is arguing in the Supreme Court that holding the floor test now is a problem because the disqualification issue has to be decided and it can't be retrospectively corrected. Now, on the same hand, the Supreme Court also has to watch out that providing undue amount of time at a time for a government which has seemingly lost numbers, will it not open doors for horse trading? So there is going to be a balance from the Supreme Court. Yes, you are right. You see, the battle for Mr. Uddhav Thackeray is that his party, his legislature party has been stolen by Mr. Eknath Shinde. He runs the risk of losing the party now in case Eknath Shinde comes to power along with the BJP. That's the new Hindutva element which will emerge. And that's where there might be a lot of reorientation within the Shiv Sena, because Uddhav Thackeray has proved himself not to be what can you say, in the same Balasaheb Thackeray mold. And that's what Eknath Shinde, that is why he has challenged it, because he realizes that within the Shiv Sena there is a feeling that Uddhav Thackeray is no Balasaheb Thackeray. And that is why retaining the party is a big element. And that is why I will put another question here, that by renaming Aurangabad, Osmanabad and an airport, what Uddhav Thackeray has indicated a march back towards Hindutva, something Mr. Eknath Shinde was asking him to do that. And that also means that if he is doing it despite the opposition of Sharad Pawar, NCP and others, is he going to be part of the MVA in the future in case, even if his government comes down? I think it's a big trouble happening for the MVA
Appreciate you joining us, Kamlesh, as well as Rahul. We're going to leave it at that. Up next is going to be Rahul Kamal, who's going to take our broadcast further. Two big developments, viewers. Number one is that Uddhav Thackeray has pretty much conveyed that he will step down before facing a floor test. Will that floor test happen tomorrow is the other question. It's supposed to happen at 11 a.m. That's what the governor has ordered. And right now in court, it is the Solicitor General who's representing the governor arguing on why it should happen tomorrow at 11 a.m. We should hear from the Supreme Court in the next hour from now. Up next, Rahul Kamal taking it further from here. Thank you for joining us.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com or call 9999892171. Everyone's busy finding what's trending. You're busy finding out why. India Today, for those who research before reacting. Download the India Today app now. Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
Floor test final or more twists? Emotional Uddhav thanks his cabinet. From flashing victory sign to folded hands.